by the military-industrial complex.
It could be seen to move violently forward, violently forward, violently forward.
I'm just a patsy.
Like when they attack.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
You think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAP.
Well, you have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so
Exactly.
that's not so bad.
Exactly.
I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
And we're back from beautiful Santa Monica, California. How you doing, George?
Well, Peter, I came to check on you again. and this is, I'm getting the phone call.
You're getting a phone call. So should I stretch?
No,
Okay.
but I'm live with Peter Duke, so I have to call you back. All right. So I just want
This is professional show business.
Well, the person is saying,
Yeah.
Are you going to really go at 2:30 or you're not? And I'm like, okay, we're going. But Peter, this is the first time I've seen you since the fire where your blood pressure is under 200.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I did a Zoom call on Saturday for the members of the Duke Report so that I could fill them in on my private life and you know what's really been going on behind the scenes, stuff that I don't really want out on the internet. So
Sure.
For the people who were on that Zoom call, they get it. But yeah, I'm in this. I'm in a little furnished apartment in beautiful downtown Santa Monica, California. And it's pretty much the same era as the place that I lived at before. But
I was going to say it has the same feel of the Thomas Mann, Bertolt Brecht. You feel like, Magic Mountain script is going to be left at your door. That we're in that. Was it Greta Garbo?
And when you walk in the hall, it kind of smells like grandma.
Kind of smells like Greta Garbo.
It smells like grandma. So,
well, I really do like this setup for you, and you said it's month to month, and your guy really was helping for the fire victims.
Yeah, the guy who owns the building is a world class guy.
That's nice, where you just can come in, and even though Gavin's not helping, well, Gavin said you can't do gouging on the rents.
They were all again, but this seems to be the reoccurring theme, right? Is that an executive will go out and make a promise about something, and whether or not they actually have the agency or the ability to follow through on that becomes a giant question mark.
Yeah, they collect the votes. This is what the show's about today, which is promises.
Right.
And if your intro, right, JFK files,
right,
back and to the right, right, RFK, well, let's go on and win in California or wherever, win in New York. Martin Luther King. You got General Dynamics in there with the space,
the rocket,
the rocket, lunar lander. You got Robert Allen Hale in there with the Atlas V rocket. I mean, you really have all the promises of all the files. The only thing you don't have is Jeff Epstein, I don't think.
Yeah, well,
Maybe.
Epstein wasn't even born, I think, until like the last couple of shots in the video. So, but yeah, we don't have Epstein. We don't have the compromise thing. But
yeah.
But I've been head down. I've been posting. I think I posted 4 or 5 stories. I have a couple of like in the chute ready to go on the Duke Report.
You've been busy on Substack.
I've been working on the end of my book because I think it's more. Part of the reason that it's taken me so long to get the book out is because I felt like in the book None Dare Call It Conspiracy, Gary Allen was saying this is the last election that we can vote our way out of this. And in Tragedy and Hope 101, Joe Plummer is saying we need to come up with a new kind of way of bartering with each other in order to fix the world. And neither one of those solutions kind of rang true to me. And it wasn't until I got involved with the neuro-linguistic programming end of it that I really started to take a look at the New Testament of all things and saw that there's a lot of answers for the problems that we're dealing with in oligarchy right now. But given my current frame on this, that my thesis is that because of the epistemological warfare environment that we have been operating in the last couple of thousand years, there's a lot of things that we just kind of took for granted that may not line up. So I've just been trying to refactor or reframe a lot of things that we took for granted in order to be able to come up with solutions. And what's interesting is that when you look at the New Testament that way, there are guys like James Corbett or Richard Grove who have been saying for a decade or more, you gotta use your critical thinking. You gotta use your critical thinking skills. And if you understand what the definition of the word logos really is in Greek, Jesus was saying exactly the same thing as Richard Grove and James Corbett.
I saw your Sermon on the Mount is basically a sermon for the critical thinker.
Yeah.
Really is, blessed are the critical thinkers. I'm waiting to hear blessed are the critical thinkers.
That's in Greek, that's kind of what it says.
Well, the logos being the use of words and all the ways that you can use language to celebrate God or be in the presence of God, right?
Well, yeah, the idea is that in the beginning was the logos, and logos doesn't mean word, it means everything that you can do with a word. So if it was more, I'm always struggling for a way to frame this because I'm going to offend somebody. But if you just, the way that it reads in Greek is in the ability to think, reason, measure, and communicate. In the beginning was the ability to think, reason, measure, and communicate. And the ability to think, reason, measure, and communicate was with God. And the ability to think, reason, measure, and communicate is God, which means that my ability to talk to you right now and to talk to the people out there in the audience and for them to understand me is God. That is, the Holy Spirit, as it were, is flowing through me. It's turning my thoughts into language. It's turning my language into words. The words are going into your ears, and that is the self-evident proof that God exists. So that is kind of it in a nutshell. And I know that there's...
And Zaganostra is saying you need more than that. And believe me, I mean, the man upstairs gets all the credit. Total sinner, nothing without, God. All that goes along with it. And that's each individual person's choice, I think, where we get into.
Well, I get into it. I don't think that, faith is a word that isn't really translated that accurately in Greek. Love is a direction to me. It's not a nominalization. It's not a noun. It's not a thing. So I have, I'm reframing a lot of this stuff, and it makes a lot more sense to me. But I digress, and that's going to be in the book.
Buy the book.
Yeah, it's going to be in the book. But if you want to get a taste, just look at my Substack posts for the last week or so, because I've been on a roll. You've
been kicking it out,
yeah.
And I think this helps. This place helps, I think.
Yeah. It's quiet, and I'm not distracted, and I've been able to concentrate.
Yeah,
so.
This is the first time, and I think this reminded me of a place we looked at a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, with some friends from the East.
Yeah.
But it just didn't happen. It didn't line up. It wasn't as good as this.
Here's the thing. This takes all the pressure off because it's furnished. It's month to month, and I've got I still have a lot of balls up in the air. You guys will notice that Jessica's not here. That ball is up in the air. She's safe. She's okay right now, but she's not here, and so this takes a lot of pressure off me.
Yeah. I think everybody understands people react to huge things different ways, and that's just what happens.
Yeah, when your house burns down, stuff happens.
Yeah, and that's just how it is. So,
but I have not been paying any attention to all of the promises. And when I talked to you this morning, you were, to quote some Yiddish, you seemed verklempt. Verklempt on the current state of promises. So do you want to fill me in on that?
Sure.
Because I haven't been paying any attention.
Well, just watch the Peter Duke lead-in video, which is we're going to have the JFK files in 45 days. We're at the 47-day marker right now, just on the JFK files.
Right.
I think, throw the these great comments up, yeah. Just on the JFK files, Tucker Carlson said, the excuse was why they've gone over the deadline. Because they were going to say...
Because they've only had 60 years to think about it?
My whole life, it's like... I might, I don't want to be dead when these things finally come out.
Right.
And that almost happened.
But I'm bummed.
But that was supposed to happen. Then it's Tom Cotton. Tucker Carlson blames Tom Cotton. Well, Tom Cotton fires back. I have no problem with issuing these things. So it's one of these kind of now. And if the president decides to declassify, it doesn't matter what a senator says.
Sure.
So we're kind of playing one of those whack-a-mole, or not whack-a-mole, but like hide the ball kind of things.
Hide the salami.
Well, I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to say that. But yeah, it is kind of... George said he has only one lung.
Oh, well, Putin sucks. Thank you for self-identifying yourself, because George can keep talking, and then I can go find this person and get rid of them. It's great. We have a method.
I have two lungs. One of them is very clouded with pneumonia. So you know how when people say, I have only one arm, really good arm, after they hurt their arm. That's the sort of expression. I have two lungs.
They're gone. Look, George, I made them go away. Look, I figured this out. Yeah.
Okay. And then you can delete them. But the bottom line here is, I'm not the one who's giving out the JFK files. So you wonder why the NSA attacks on me, right? When we're talking about Trump with the JFK files in 60 years, right? This is the, go back to the Warren Commission and 72 different people who are witnesses dying in the craziest ways. This is what Ian Carroll was talking about with Joe Rogan.
Yeah, didn't a lot of people die of carbon monoxide poisoning in their? They sat alone in their cars in their garage and died of carbon monoxide.
They fell asleep on railroad tracks and were hit. They flew in planes. Their planes went down. Hale Boggs and then Bobby Kennedy was almost.
Well, whenever you have one of these big events, like I said very early on, that after the Palisades fire, that I thought that maybe firemen would start committing suicide.
Well, if they're whistleblowers, if they were like, I was told to stand down. That very easily could happen. So my point is, we don't seem to be any closer, right? We don't seem to be any closer to getting the Kennedy files, and it's very frustrating. And I wrote a piece on my Substack saying that's when we go to work. When governments fall down and don't follow through on their promises, that's why you have citizen journalism.
Right.
I mean,
and not controlled opposition media. Like, what do they call it? Mainstream alternative media. That's what they're calling Tucker Carlson. And
it doesn't matter what you call it. If you're not saying Marilyn Monroe was a lure for JFK to try to get JFK into situations so that he couldn't continue trying to do a peace race or continue to stay out of Vietnam, and then we could get somebody in there who would do the escalate with General Dynamics mercenaries and escalate the war like Johnson. That's what Marilyn Monroe was being used for, and she was being used for that for John F. Kennedy, not just down the street here, just down the street on Ocean. Peter Lawfare's house, and then Bobby Kennedy was there that night she died. So she was murdered, right? And so because she was no longer useful as a lure, and where I go in with the Manson thing is I say the Bobby Kennedy, the same thing happens with Sharon Tate. Sharon Tate is this same asset that's being used, and there's other women that are killed along the
So
way.
it's a cleanup on aisle 4.
It's a cleanup on aisle 4,
Right.
and there's also a huge LSD seeding operation for the music scene here in Santa Monica, and up Sunset Boulevard, the Rick
Right.
Olson Sunset Boulevard. Have they named it Sunset Boulevard after Rick Olson yet? No, I don't think they have. But
Sunset Boulevard used to be named Beverly. That's complete random side note.
I had
Yeah.
walked up Beverly. There's
Yeah.
still a Beverly that
There's still a Beverly,
goes into it.
but what Sunset Boulevard that ran through the Pacific Palisades when the Pacific Palisades was founded was called Beverly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom Ince used to live on Beverly.
Right.
Yeah. So, but my point is that we keep using these blonde starlets, or in the case of Judith Exner, dark hair, or in the case of Mary Cord Meyer, blonde, or the Quarth girl, or the daughter of the governor of Texas that gets shot, Connolly.
Right.
All these women are being used to try to.
Wasn't
lure-
Pelosi like a little honeypot back in the day? Didn't they try to?
I think-
Didn't they dangle her? in
I
front
think
of
they
JFK?
did
Yeah,
with
yeah.
DeSangelo, you
Yeah.
know, with the mob and
Right.
the heroin running into the Port of Baltimore. So my point is this is a pattern, and it goes all the way through Epstein, and where Ian Carroll is going with this is, hey, this is very Israel. You know, there's a lot of Mossad here, and I cannot say there isn't. I'm pretty pro-Israel, right? I'm pretty, hey, I'm not like the greater Israel Zionist. Like, oh, it needs to be the Ganges, or not the Ganges, I'm sorry. It needs to be the Nile all the way over to the Euphrates. I'm not that kind of...
Right, and my basic take on Israel is that Israel is a tool of the empire that, like the United States of America, is a tool of the empire, and that there are advantages to using offshore intelligence agents in situations where you've got law that precludes people from doing things. So if you're trying to manage events in the United States of America, and it's illegal for you to use the FBI or the CIA to do that, then you use Mossad to do it. Likewise, in Israel, you would use the CIA or MI6 to do it.
Somebody offshore.
Right,
Yeah.
you're always using somebody from another team in order to continue keep moving the pieces on the chessboard. But as long as we're focused on like, oh, it's the Israelis who did it, or it's the Zionists who did it, then we're not looking at who those people actually work for. And this is, again, part of the Castle Keep phenomenon that I describe in my article on Castle Keep phenomenons, which is that you always have this fallback position of another layer of people to blame. And blaming the Jews became a thing in Venice during the Inquisitions, I believe, when the Spanish kicked the Jews out of the Spanish Empire.
Hitler.
And they all wound up in the ghetto in Venice, and the Venetians were looking at the Jews and thinking, "Oh, look, everybody hates the Jews. We can use that. But they're really good at running our ports and running all of our trading operations. They're really good at running banks. They're really good at all of those things.
Catherine the Great, same thing.
Yeah, so we need to we'll put those people in those positions, and then when people get mad at the things that we're doing, then they'll just blame the Jews.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, look at NSA. NSA could have given encrypted communications out to the people wiring the World Trade Centers, right? They could have given encrypted communications directly to them. No, they gave them to P-Tech, and then P-Tech, an American company, gave it to the Israelis. Encrypted communications end up 3,000 people murdered, right? And one of the people here who's a troll, his father, and many of her uncles were the people on the watch when the encrypted communication was given to P-Tech, and there was 3,000 murders. And Epstein's a big part of that. People don't realize, I've talked to Wayne Madsen and so forth, that he provided, when the decision was made not to do anthrax and crop dusters with small planes, but do big planes, that's when Jeff Epstein got involved with the simulators and so forth in eastern Florida. So to me, it doesn't surprise me that, like the trolls, the NSA trolls, yeah, Your father was on the watch while 3,000 people were murdered. Of course you're here trying to knock that down. Nobody wants that out from NSA. Right. These are stories about 9/11. This is what I'm saying is it doesn't matter if you call yourself new media.
Right.
What you have to do is tell the truth.
Sure.
The story that nobody knows.
You have to apply logos in the direction of life.
You got to tell the truth and the secret truth that's not being said, and the thing that Israel doesn't want published. And
I'm going to for anybody else who's watching on Twitter, go to YouTube or go to Rumble or go to LinkedIn, because I'm going to make this person go away. So I'm sorry for I tried to ban them. I thought that I had this thing.
Well, you can block them, but
I have blocked them, but they're still posting. So I don't.
Let me just speak to the
troll.
And I'll say this: I moved to New York a year after 9/11. I got there the day of the 9/11, the first 9/11 celebration, when they were ringing the bell. It was about on the ease and so forth. I went to work at the Woolworth building. I was looking into the hole of World Trade Center 1, 2, and 7. Okay, I felt like America and democracy was under attack, and Israel was under attack. So I tried to join the IDF. Right? I tried. Right. I was 42 years old or 41, and I was too old. I wanted my kids to join the IDF. Right.
So you were a true believer at that point.
I was a true believer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how could anyone?
I was a true believer. I had a picture of George W. Bush on the bulletin board behind my desk in my office, and people in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And people thought it was a joke. Like, they came into my office and they thought, oh, you couldn't possibly have a picture of that guy. No, I was a true believer. I was completely hypnotized.
Yeah.
So I'll let you finish this, and then I want to talk to this clown in the UK.
Okay.
Because you're a clown. Okay.
Okay. They might be in the UK as well, but the UK, like you mentioned,
we have lots of great people who watch this show in the UK.
Yeah. Well, the UK is another example where look at Christopher Steele.
Right.
They just outsourced the whole smear campaign against Trump.
Right. Exactly.
And infiltration, because it wasn't sanctioned by the FBI, right? And the CIA ran it with Brennan, and then
Mifsud, right?
Mifsud,
yeah.
And then when it became convenient with the FISA court and Peter Strzok, they moved all that over, all the dossier and all the crap. They moved it over into the FBI. Right. And then they got the 4 successive FISAs. Right.
With Trump, with what's his name? Orr.
Carter Page.
Bruce Orr and
Nellie Orr and George Papadopoulos and the whole gang. So you wanted to speak to the...
Yeah, so I want to talk to this clown, and you're a clown. I'm a man and I live in the UK, and I know you are a Russian disinfo agent. For people who watch my channel, people who read my blog, they know that I am constantly referring to Halford Mackinder and the geographic pivot of history, and that the British Empire never went away. It morphed into something else, something more financial and psychological, and that this Russia versus us dynamic is completely a fake nonsense argument. So you can live in the UK and you can accuse George of being a Russian disinfo agent, but Peter Duke doesn't actually even really believe in countries. So you're kind of like categorizing yourself as somebody who needs to catch up by blaming anybody of being a Russian disinfo agent. And if you don't understand that the city of London is in control at the top of all of this stuff, then you're a fool. You're a fool. So I'll just.
Well, that's good. So kind of a preview of your book.
Yeah.
You can go to Twitter too and delete if you don't want it to be on the thing later. But my point here is that this whole idea of Russian disinfo agent. If I said P-Tech, right, was given all kinds of top secret clearances, and they were going through all the files of the high worth net individuals in WTC1 and WTC2 before 9/11, a couple of months before, it's true, right? And this is what is not being told. Now, is that Russian disinfo? How is 9/11 involved with the Russians, right? There's no involvement. To my mind, I can't remember the Russians at all being involved in 9/11. with Marilyn Monroe. Again, where's the Russians aspect in that? Where Bobby Kennedy murder? Where's the Russian aspect?
Well, I got tired of somebody else running our show, so I ended Twitter. I thought I could block him, but I blocked him on here, and
well, if you're on Twitter, go to.
Well, Twitter's gone.
Oh,
so
Twitter's
we
gone.
can't even. I told people 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
I told people.
Well, they can find us. Well, we'll give.
They can find us on Rumble or YouTube or LinkedIn. We'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then we'll have just the.
So we can go back to being in control of our own show.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
So, where were we?
I think we're talking about promises, and are the promises? Is anybody even trying to keep the promises? Pam Bondi, just moving on to another promise.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is the Epstein files.
Right, but and again, I'm not gonna play the woulda, coulda, shoulda, or I told you so game. I just want to point out that Pam Bondi was, I think, the Attorney General of Florida, who approved the special prosecution of George Zimmerman. So she's always had a giant asterisk next to her, as far as I'm concerned. I never thought she was a good guy. Likewise, there's an attorney that I won't name who was also became very active and prominent at around the same period of time, who's a California attorney, who's a MAGA attorney. And as soon as my house burned down, she reached out to me because she wanted to represent me because she saw the video of my wife crying. And I thought, this ambulance chaser is coming after me because she sees a video that she can raise $1 million to put together some fake court case on. So, there's a lot of shenanigans that goes on in law and lawfare. So I was never really on the Pam Bondi team, but I digress. Sorry about
Well,
that. Yeah.
I mean, she's damaging her reputation right now. I mean, she made quite a stir, a lot of promises. She said there were going to be 4 separate releases of these documents. Mm-hmm. The first set of documents still isn't out. It's not even out redacted. What she did was she gave a couple of 20 people binders, but again, saying they have it.
Right, it was a big press release.
Yeah,
and yet
our buddy Jack
Posobiec and
DC Drano,
yeah, and all these guys dressed up, and they were holding up binders that had one sheet on it, and they were dancing around, and like the Israelis on 9/11, right?
I remember him from Washington D.C. The guy who Scott Turn Out the Vote guy, Pressler.
Yeah.
I think he was one of the guys too. And the thing is, that really doesn't. That almost it was even more damaging because it's saying I'm going to have a group of chosen ones, right? That I'm going to choose to be my kind of promoted ones,
right?
It's sort of like almost like court criers. And which isn't in the spirit of citizen journalism and giving everybody the information. So we're not to 2 yet. I mean, we're supposed to be to 4.
Right.
We're not even to 2. And then it was national security. This thing of national security keeps coming up, meaning what you said earlier, which is if we as CIA decide somebody needs to be tested to see if they're vulnerable to a sexual lure.
Right.
We're going to go for national security purposes.
Right.
To assess them.
We're going to send a Ukrainian woman.
Or Jeff Epstein. We're going to send him to Epstein Island, and then this Office of Net Assessment with member Yoda, that Yoda guy. Can't remember what his name was. The Marshall.
So
we're gonna, but now that be using national security again. We're redacting again.
So let me ask you a question because I don't ever hear anybody discuss this, and I think it, and I've thought about it a lot, and that is, we know that Bannon did a big long interview with Epstein. My ex-business partner Chuck Johnson told me that when he worked for Alan Dershowitz, he was working on the Epstein case files, like as a 16-year-old kid at Milton Academy, right? And Chuck has written on his Substack, I could probably pull these things up, that Epstein was not a bad guy, that he was one of us, whoever us is. And This all makes me wonder whether or not Epstein was either a double agent or a triple agent, like working for, like Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine's father. Maxwell wasn't just accused of working with the Israelis. He was accused of working with everyone.
Right.
And so,
Well, he had State Department planes with DynCorp tail numbers. So,
Right.
I mean, that leads you to believe, like you're saying, it's a triple agent. It's sort of like somebody who plays baseball on one, pro baseball on one team,
Right.
and pro football on another team. As long as they're not in the same area,
right.
it's okay maybe. But he does seem, because he was doing the genetic editing with Bill
Right.
Gates. He was over here doing longevity with the Singularity type conferences out at Little St. James. He was in it. He had his fingers in a lot of pies. He was in the Bear Stearns. He was doing the Humpty Dumpty Society, which was sort of a betting pool for flipping countries,
Right.
for Black Swan events. So he had a lot of things he was involved in.
Yeah, it reminds me. So Chip Tatum did this interview with Ted Gunderson, like in the '90s, right? So it's a bad VHS tape, and but Chip Tatum, when Gunderson was asking him who he worked for, whether or not he worked for the Israelis or he worked for the Americans or he worked for the British, Chip Tatum just kind of, I'll have to find the clip, but he looked at him and he just kind of like smiled. He was talking about this group that he called, I think, the Pegasus group. And he said, and Gunderson said, well, who do they work for? And he goes, and Tatum didn't have a really good way of explaining, but he said something to the effect, I'm paraphrasing, he said, countries aren't really a thing, right?
Yeah.
To this group, they are an inconvenience that require you to have different passports in order to move around. But as far as getting things done, these people don't really actually kind of think of countries. And so Epstein just kind of seems to be cut out of that same cloth as Maxwell. It's like, it's easy to call him a Mossad agent, but at the same time, nobody ever mentions MI6. I love Johnny Vedmore. I think Johnny Vedmore is a great resource. I never hear Johnny talk about MI6.
Johnny, you should have met me when I went.
And Johnny has done all these huge exposés on, and again, I invite Johnny to come on the show and talk to me about it and tell me how I'm wrong. I want to be wrong, okay? But he talks a lot about Stan Pottinger.
Yeah.
The Pottinger files. He's got in-depth exposés on the Pottingers, but he hasn't talked about the last Nazi yet. Okay.
Yeah.
I keep inviting
And
Johnny.
Stan Pottinger was the guy who did all the Johns, the people that were targeted by
Right.
Jeff Epstein with the women. He was the one who was milking all the Johns for the money and blackmail.
And wasn't there a British East India Company Pottinger who was running Hong Kong?
Yeah, all the drug trade.
All the drug trade in
And
Hong Kong,
because
yeah.
they closed the
Yeah.
port city of Hong Kong, Lord Pottinger was the one who opened it up
Okay, so
by force.
So this A. Baker says, when you see a handler, what exactly do you mean? What is the point of a handler? Okay, this is a section in my book, so I know this very well.
Okay.
But basically, we all know Plato's got a structure of the hierarchy of the world, which is like the bronze and the gold, the copper, or the
philosopher kings are at the top, right?
There's the gold, the silver, and the world is kind of organized that way. You've got the power elite at the top, and the power elite have handlers who run things for them. These are people who know how to get things done. But starting at the bottom, you've got prisoners of the cave, as defined by Plato. These are people who watch television, they watch sports ball, they watch sports ball, and they think that reality is what they see on TV. Above that, you've got a group of people who are politically activated. Those are the true believers, as defined by Eric Hoffer in his book, The True Believer. These are the people who get involved in politics. They think voting is real, and the ball is always going back and forth between the left and the right. Okay. On top of that, you have assets. Assets are people who are working to the benefit of the power elite, who are the people at the top, the people who, not the bankers, the people who own the banks. There's a difference. We all looking at the billionaires all the time. There's trillionaires, okay? The people who own the banks are the power elite. Below that are the handlers. The handlers are the people who know that they're working for the power elite, who are getting things done. The handlers manage a bunch of assets. The assets are people who are usually recruited out of the true believers, or they've been moused into becoming assets.
And I know this hierarchy, this pyramid is in your book.
It is in the book.
Because
yes.
I've seen it.
And I've got pictures and I've tweeted graphics of this whole setup. So a handler is somebody who knows that they're working for the power elite to the ends of the power elite. And so who's a handler? Somebody like Henry Kissinger is a handler. The Rockefellers, David Rockefeller and David Rockefeller. Now, David Rockefeller is an interesting case because he's probably power elite. You know, Evelyn de Rothschild is probably power elite. But the thing that that disturbs my hierarchy a little bit is that I don't think that most of the people who are the power elite, we know who they are. I don't think that we know who the trillionaires are. Okay, so I
liked your one tweet that you said, we always worried about these billionaires doing this and billionaires doing that. What we need to worry about is the trillionaires and the quadrillionaires.
Right, exactly.
The countries or whoever, you know.
Right, because when you start to understand the nature of the monetary system and you look at how much dark money, I mean, how does 23, according to Catherine Austin Fitts, Solari report, how do $23 trillion go missing in an economy with zero accountability?
And that's where Doge is really a problem now, because now you see where the inequities are in the books, and people go, "Hey, we're missing
but
a trillion here and a trillion there."
But Catherine Austin Fitts and Mark Skidmore figured out that there's $23 trillion missing with no Doge. They didn't need a Doge.
Right. But they were at a position where they had kind of a field of view. But I will say this: there are reports now that say 47%? No, 4.7 trillion. They don't know where it went.
Sure.
Of the $8 trillion budget.
That's
amazing.
And
4.7 trillion. I only need a slice of that.
Donald Rumsfeld on September 10th,
right.
2001, had a press conference and announced that there was 2.3 or 2.6
somewhere
trillion dollars missing from the Pentagon budget, and by complete coincidence, the accounting team was wiped out to a man the next day.
Yep.
When an airplane hit the accounting office of the Pentagon, and all those people died.
After a 330-degree, Waldo
corkscrew turn. Yeah, exactly. And then after that, we never heard that story again. Like, Donald Rumsfeld didn't come out on September 12th and say, "Gee whiz, all of the people working on that accounting problem died yesterday. We don't
have to worry about it anymore."
Yeah,
and there's the Israel component again. Not to go to the Israel component.
Right.
But this is where Ian Carroll is going, and people are saying is every time it's Israel, it's national security, and we can't talk about it.
And I say every time it's Israel, you have to look at MI6. You have to. You have to look at the House of Lords. You have to look at the Fabian socialists, the Fabian Society.
There's this consortium, like you say, an international consortium,
right?
That, like the Atlantic Council, which is, by definition, both people on both sides of the Atlantic, and I definitely think that they run things. And go ahead.
Okay, White Rose is saying, did you hear about Elon saying that there's been threats of his life because of Doge? Yeah, he was on Joe Rogan saying that. Again, all of these things are great because they wind up increasing Elon's signature as a rabble rouser, as a what do they call it, a gadfly, as somebody who's going to go in and change things. Ooh, he's risking his life. Oh, he's risking his life. Oh, he's risking his life. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. He's an actor. I think Elon is an actor. He's a Doge. Go watch. I've got all these things on. Go onto the Duke Report, DukeReport.substack.com, and type in Doge. And you'll find all these things that I've written about Doges that I didn't do all the original research. I'm standing on the shoulders of Webster Tarpley Anton Chaikin and a bunch of other guys from the Lyndon LaRouche's Institute. He's a Doge. He's a Doge, which means that he's been picked by the Trillionaires to represent them. Stephen Greer is CIA. Okay, Stephen Greer is just straight up. He's a sock puppet UFO dude. Like, you know.
Well, if you amalgam all
Right.
of these stories that have been kind of sublimated,
Right.
which is the 9/11 and the RFK and so, what you end up with is sort of Ben Gurion going at Kennedy saying, I want a nuclear bomb. I'm going to keep doing testing at Dimona. Kennedy saying, I'm trying to do a peace race here. I'm trying to do a nuclear test ban treaty. The Chicago mob killing Kennedy because of that. And then a lot of money being diverted to Israel. Again, I was really to fight for Israel in 2002.
Right.
Right.
I had a picture of George W. Bush on the bulletin board behind my
my
desk.
life to fight for Israel because I thought that was where democracy with the front lines.
We were true believers.
I was a true believer.
Yeah.
And I still am a little bit of a true believer with Elon and Trump. I will say this, the not delivering on these promises has really shaken me.
Right. Well, again,
deeply.
I stood there. I stood on the steps. Frances Leader says that these are the people. She's done a lot of research on this. I disagree with her on some things, but you know, the gulf, the wealth, the
white Ghibellines and the white Guelphs and the red.
It's a club. It's a corporation that goes back to the British East India Company. It's the original stockholders of the British East India Company. But those people were the bloodlines of the Roman senators. To Francis Leader's point. So
well, to a certain degree, I think the opium trade with the East India Company. And then the Suez Canal being critical to that because it shortens the cycle time.
Right.
And also it's your source of getting into Turkey and so forth. Pottinger's still very much in place. Dan Pottinger is the guy who's doing the blackmailing for the Jeff Epstein girls. So it's, fast forward to now. Were the cyber attacks real? I think they were. They came out of Ukraine. I wrote a Substack about it called Zora, the Mark of Zora. And we outlined the team that Dmitry Alperovich had trained in Ukraine. So, I think they were real. I think Elon, when you don't have the transparency, when you have this opacity, this black box thing, you start losing trust. When you get all the information, here's what we're cutting, and here's all the things we found. Doge.gov is good. Doge count is good. Then you feel good, right? You feel like, okay, they're accomplishing things. But when things go dark, as soon as Israel comes on the screen, it feels like it's no longer Make America Great Again. It feels like it's Make Israel Great Again.
Well,
and,
again,
I don't like them Israel Great Again. I like Israel as a partner. October 7th, the whole thing. I'm not a pro-Palestinian in any way, shape, or form, but I don't want to see another country, maybe it is driven through MI6,
right,
dominating our country,
or whatever the organization is that they all report to. Right. Okay. Because Jonathan Gibson. So Jonathan Gibson, I've written a few things about Addis. I do think that the Statue of Liberty is a statue of Addis, not a Statue of Liberty. But if you've got any resources that you want to send me an email at contact@thedukereport.com, I'm happy to look at whatever things about Addis that you're talking about, because that's super interesting to me. I just wanted to put that up there.
Great. Well, the comments are always great, and there's always references to things I don't know, and I love that because it's great for learning.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that on the Zoom call, there were people that were surprised that you didn't know who Patrick Wood was. I
don't know who Patrick.
Yeah, so I can bring that up. Hang on a second. I think it's again, and the Duke Report. By the way, big shout out to my buddy Jesse Canner, who was the director of technology at Fox, Delphi Internet Services, which became Fox Marketing in the early 1990s, because he's going to rebuild the Duke Report news aggregator and book site. He's rebuilding it right now. So he reached out to me. So big shout out to Jesse Cantor. Thank you very much. Okay, so Patrick Wood, I'm going to bring this up. Patrick Wood, Technocracy. And he's got a few books. So Patrick Wood was Audible, Technocracy.news. Here we go. And then I can share this. Technocracy News.
Oh, we did bring his profile up during the show, and I did look it up during the show when I read his bio.
Yeah, but just for
no, this is good. I'm not real familiar with him, so this is good.
All right, so here's Patrick Wood's website, Technocracy News, and he's got a Technocracy boot camp that he's putting out right now, and then he's got these books. He got into this world because he was a colleague of Anthony Sutton. So when Anthony Sutton got booted out of the Hoover Institute, then he met Patrick Wood at some kind of a conference. They became fast friends, and they worked on books together. And so Patrick Wood figured out that some
people are saying he has an association with James Corbett.
Patrick Wood is an OG. He's an original gangster, as they say in the hood. And
give me another explanation.
Okay, so Patrick Wood has been on to the shenanigans that the World Economic Forum represents for 20 years. Okay, he's figured this
early visionary.
He figured out that Technocracy was a movement that was started, I want to say, in the 1930s. Elon Musk's grandfather was kicked out of Canada because he was trying to overthrow the Canadian government and replace it with a technocratic government. So the thesis that Wood presents is that communism and capitalism, as defined by Karl Marx, were always a dialectic. They were always designed to fail. That is, capitalism was never supposed to completely succeed, and communism was never supposed to completely succeed, because they were both supposed to demonstrate that they were flawed ways of taking the popular will of a country, and representing them as a government. The idea always was that engineers, technocrats, for lack of a better term, would always have a better way of managing the society than anything that was left up to the popular opinion of the constituents of that society. And so
depression, the Great Depression, and all these things,
right? And so
or the famines on the communist side. So
this has been a program that's been going on for more than 100 years, that has been designed to psychologically condition everybody to believe that a technical solution to managing our day-to-day life would be better than letting any human being make that decision. And that seems to be the direction that we're going in.
AI in the sky.
Yeah, but you and I know that AI is always going to be a mechanical Turk. There's always going to be somebody with their hand up the back of the AI making it talk like this. Right? Yeah.
Jeff Bezos is the greatest.
Right.
Yeah. So we got a lot of comments. I've been chatting with Grok the last couple of days.
Don't do that.
Oh, what? Don't read the comments.
No, don't chat with Grok.
Oh, you mean because you feel like that's giving the enemy the. Vedmore was covering the Pottingers, but Vedmore did not cover, as you say. He doesn't cover representing the Johns. That's a pretty big hole there.
No, I mean, look, I love Johnny Vedmore.
You should have met me in Cardiff. I went all the way to Cardiff.
I love Johnny Vedmore, and I
waited 5 hours.
And I love Whitney Webb, and I like anybody who's bringing light to darkness. But again, like I said, Pottinger, we've talked many times about The Last Nazi, And then there's direct connections, I think, that go back to the British East India Company and MI6. So, yeah, there's more. There's more to reveal.
Well, I just think with Stan Pottinger, if you don't have the last Nazi, which is it's basically the bioagent roll up of the Gaza. I mean, it's basically we get the vaccine and they don't, and they die, and we take over the land. It's sort of like the Nakba, the bio Nakba.
Bio Nakba, yeah.
Yeah, and the forced expulsion. And if you don't get that with Stan Pottinger writing that for Kissinger, I don't know what you get. Or if you don't understand the relationship of Stan Pottinger to Kissinger,
sure.
I just think you get an F. I mean, that's kind of fundamental. But he comes and goes, and people like his accent, and Whitney had the kid with him, so I guess it is what it is. So
yeah, again, I
think they're trying to get back together.
Here's the thing, or at
least he's trying to get visitation.
Here's the thing.
Again,
there's a reason why anybody. Let me say, we can guess the reasons why people say or don't say things, but at the end of the day, they're just guesses, right? So I don't know what's in anybody's heart, and so I think that Johnny does good work. I think Whitney does good work. I think that we do good work, and I think that there's giant holes in all of our work, and a lot of it has to do with we don't know it. The other part has to do with we haven't had time to work on it. And those are all completely legitimate things, which is why we all need each other. This is why we need the logos of the language coming out of our mouths, and you're reading them on the pages.
I think there is sharing of tools like metadata, though, because you can construct, sort of like with blood stains from a murder scene, you can, or, with spatter marks.
Right.
So you can kind of do a reconstruction even though you weren't there for the event. And metadata analysis does allow you to do that if you have the right metadata. For instance, Thomas Crooks,
sure,
right, supposedly the bad guy, but he has a 5-year conversation with 3 different people overseas, one to Belgium, one to Germany, and one somewhere else, but using 3 different encrypted communication packages, and there's 700 messages. You and I both know that in order for those packets to get delivered, they had to have IP addresses so they could at least publish the metadata of that conversation.
Right.
Right. I say it was for a recruiting program for Ukrainian snipers, recruiting American men covertly, and women, but mostly men, for being long-distance snipers in Ukraine. And Spirit of America, Matt Dimick ran the program. Now, why can't you put out he's dead. Crooks is dead.
Yeah.
So why can't you put out the metadata of his conversations?
Right.
These are the things that eat away at my trust.
Sure.
In the
which is why I think that again, if you really wanted to, if you wanted to bring it back to promises. If you wanted to be fully transparent, declassify everything. Tell every agent. You could give people an out. You could say, because there's a lot of people who are operating covertly as agents, right? You could say in 365 days I'm going to declassify everything. Okay, that gives everybody who's undercover a year, right, to figure out a way to change their situation in the next 365 days. Look, Francis Leader's got some interesting comments here. We'll read them in a second. And then you just declassify everything and let the chips fall. That would be the American way of doing it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. What if you just said, look, the CIA wanted to do a compromise operation in Hollywood with a bunch of flower children, right? So they set up this clinic with the Folgers were the money people, and they gave away a bunch of free LSD, and they had Dr. Jolly West come in and find the women that were the most susceptible to suggestion with hypnosis, with LSD. They found their starting team, and then they got on a big bus and they drove down to the center of Laurel Canyon, and they started having 18 to 30 naked girls jumping into pool parties at 901, at the key people, the decision makers, with Sharon Tate and Polanski's place, and then Jack Nicholson's pool, or Peter Fonda's pool, or Dennis Hopper's pool, and that, why can't we just say it was a compromise operation, and Roman Polanski was filming his wife getting raped by these people at this pool parties. It was a compromise. Why can't we just be honest, and just say, well, that's how we controlled Hollywood back then,
Well, because they would say because that's how we controlled Hollywood back then. Because people would.
Why not just be honest?
Why people would start saying,
go to your.
Okay, so Frances is saying again. She says Vedmore was threatened by Junkermann, which is a noble name, right? It means noble man, right? Junkermann.
East Prussia.
To shut up about the Venetian black nobility. Control of the British national health system. He never talks about that level of the crime syndicate. Yeah, they may be. Look, they may, and Francis may be correct here, and maybe the reason that Johnny doesn't talk about that stuff is because they've threatened to kill his baby or something, because that's the way that these people roll. So again. There's lots of reasons why people don't say things and are still trying to do a good job, and
I think he's a good guy.
I
think Whitney is great.
I actually like both of them.
I like both of them, and I hope they, work it out with the kids, and so that everybody's great.
But again, part of this is that dialectic that we're always fighting, right? George Webb is a this, Peter Duke is a that. Okay.
Well, just look at our earlier.
Yeah. These are called nominalizations.
If I say Joe Biggs through the gates at 12:56, right, and Trump was still speaking an hour away, or for another 30 minutes at the Ellipse, that's my best recollection.
Sure.
Now here comes Jason Rink and Dan Goodwin with a time-coded 4-way split screen. That show was actually 12:22 or 52. Right. And I was off by 4 minutes.
Right.
What this guy will say is he's lying. George Webb was lying.
Right.
Right? Lying. George Webb was lying. Right? That's the thing. When your best recollection was 12:56, that's when I heard the boom. It wasn't 1 o'clock. I remember 1 o'clock being important because that's when they were going to count the votes.
Right.
So, this is... the disinfo that you're lying when you say it's 12:56. I've never said, Johnny, if we disagree on a couple of facts, and Stan Pottinger, I've never said he's lying about anything.
Yeah. So Francis says, Peter, are you aware that you blocked me from commenting on your Substack post? Nicole Junkermann is a Roman countess married to a papal knight. Okay, yes. So yes, I think I did block you. Okay, and the reason that I blocked you is because I think that you were presupposing my worldview about things in comments, and it was distracting me and causing me to lose time and concentration working on my own work. Okay, so I don't like people who presuppose. And then
or put words in your mouth.
Or put words in my mouth. And then one of the other things that I wound up doing, so it's not targeted at you specifically, is that I decided that if you want to comment on my posts, you have to be a paid member. Okay, so basically the big benefit to being a paid member of the Duke Report on my Substack is that you could comment, because that way
I do that.
Because that way I eliminate anybody who's going to just fill my channel with noise. So if you don't want to, if you want to pay to comment, or you don't have to pay on notes. On notes, there's no way to make people pay. So
I don't do notes.
I do notes all the time, and I use notes for notes.
Okay.
So when I've got
that's a good use.
When I've got notes, when there's something that I think is important, but it's not really an article, I just stick it in notes so that I can go find it later.
Good way to socialize it with your
right, and then you can leave comments on that. But but on my articles that I post, you have to pay, and that way it allows me to concentrate on what I need to do. And some people pay to disagree with me. And I'm okay with that. But yeah, Francis, I think that I like your work. I think you do good work. And I also think that you presuppose a lot of stuff about my work. And if you follow my work, then you know what I think about presuppositions. So ask, don't tell. Don't mind read me, okay? So that's that.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. Well, I think in all, to wrap here, I think we're getting close. My general feeling on all this is the more transparency you put out there, the more trust you build.
Right.
Right. And, I tell people I looked into going into the IDF at 42. I did.
And I tell people that I had a picture of George W. Bush on my bulletin board.
I'm sorry. I believe totally. I didn't think, and when I saw the squibs in 2006, I think I was watching a weekend show. I didn't even know what I was watching. And I saw the squibs, which are the timed explosives every 5 floors that are used in controlled demolition. And I saw it in the WTC.
Yeah.
I said, that was controlled demolition. How could this be? They wired it for controlled demolition before the planes hit it. How could that possibly be? And then Building 7 was the icing on the cake. It's like there is literally a Xerox office, a copier fire, and they're going to pull a whole building down that didn't even get hit. It makes you think Flight 93 was supposed to hit, Building 7. But anyway, that's when I no longer was a true believer. Those are the things that red pill you.
Yeah, exactly. So Frances, she says she never did. If I remember correctly, now forgive me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that you were criticizing, you were presupposing my framework of Christianity, which I think is unique, and I think if you follow my work, the things that I posted last week, I have a non-dogmatic frame of Christianity that I think is different than most of the people that I've ever met in my life. But I'm happy to unblock you, whatever that means. And again, I think that you do good work, but I didn't appreciate the direction that the comments were going. So that was my point.
And then to close this out,
yeah,
$400,000 a month for Benny Johnson and $400,000 a month for Tim Pool for that 10 or 12 month period of time.
From USAID?
No, it was from a company, some media company.
Oh, that weird Russian. But now they were Russian linked, right? Or were they Ukrainian linked?
There was one person who supposedly was Russian, but I don't. Oh, yeah, it was an arms manufacturer. It was the Kalashnikov.
Right.
Kalashnikov, which we had said was closely associated with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Blackstone Express. So it was very interesting, but $400,000 a month.
Right.
I mean, if you want to comment and presuppose or do anything, become a paid subscriber.
Right, exactly.
Become a paid subscriber. We're talking about $8 a month. I don't know what you charge.
Mine's only $5.
Yeah. But these guys are getting $800,000 or $400,000 a month.
I could be in a better apartment for $400,000.
Yeah, I mean,
but then I wouldn't be able to talk about what I talk about.
Right. Yeah. I'm just saying that we get a lot of feedback and consternation. And I have to put that out there.
Okay.
And you're lying. You said 1256.
All right. So Francis, I'll unblock you, but I don't even know what that means.
I think it means just upgrade to paid, and it probably won't. You'll probably get to be able to comment. Just upgrade to paid. It's only $5.
She said, "Oh yeah, see, you thought I was Jewish." Okay, don't. There it is. So I have a unique. I think I have a unique worldview on Christianity. I probably am saying things that offend everyone, including my wife at this point. But I'm putting it down and I'm sharing it with you, and I'm not charging you to read it right now. So go read my last 4 or 5 Substacks. I've got a couple in the chute that I haven't published yet today. And with that, I will I see you next Tuesday?
Not here.
I'm not here. And we're going to do it. We're not going to do it at 2:00 because on Tuesdays at 2:00, I'm doing the street sweeper shuffle because I
don't get this one parking spot, right?
If I don't get it at 2:00, I don't get it.
He misses it for the whole week. So,
okay, so
do you want to do 3:00?
Yeah, let's try 3:00. Yes.
We'll have a warning bell at the 2:00 hour, but then it'll be 3.
All right, very good. And Francis, I will unblock you, and God bless you. And with that, I will say next week, Tuesday at 3 Pacific. There it is.
And I'm not lying.
Yeah, and
3:00.
And we're not Masons.
Oh yeah. You used to live at 333.
Okay.
Remember?
I used to live at 3. Jason Goodman said that I had too many threes in my telephone number, and I had too many threes in my address that I had to be a Mason. Okay, Masons don't live in month-to-month furnished apartments. With that, I will say good night. Good night, George.